Welcome everybody, this is How to English with Gav and Em.
It's a podcast about teaching and learning English as a foreign language.
All opinions stated are personal and source materials will be referenced where possible. Hi Em.
Hi Gav. Hi Gav.
Hi Em.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I think I'm fine.
You think you're fine? Okay.
How are you feeling?
I feel absolutely fine as usual. So welcome everybody to the latest episode of How to English with Gav and Em, as you probably heard from the intro. And a special thank you to all our wonderful listeners across the world, Em. They're across the world.
Are they?
Yeah.
Ooh.
You should see these stats. They are mind-blowing.
Are they?
So I want to say thanks to all of the people in these locations. We've got the Czech Republic, we've got the United States, we've got France, Italy, Japan, Brazil, the UK, Iran, Spain, India, Germany, Netherlands, Turkey, Poland, Colombia,
Woohoo.
Canada, Argentina and Morocco.
That's amazing.
It is absolutely extraordinary. Thanks to all those listeners. Please consider writing to us if you've got any questions, if there's anything you want us to talk about in the next episode, and we will do our best to accommodate you.
Yeah.
We have decided to call this one lesson structure.
Lesson structure. A bit of a tongue twister.
It is. I think it's better than structure. Okay, I give up. Lesson structure is, I think, the first thing I think of is, from the teacher's point of view, which stages does the lesson go through? Imagine we could have a 45-minute or a 60-minute or even a 90-minute lesson with our student or group of students. What do we want to cover within that set period? And I know there's lots of theories like the best way to do it. Hopefully we'll touch on some of that. But also we're going to try and keep in mind the students' expectations, because that should be in the teacher's mind as well. Think about, if you are a student, what do you expect to get from your teacher? What do you expect to get from that lesson, that, you know, for example, 45, 60-minute? I mean, you need something to have in mind that you want to be practising, or you want to learn from that lesson. Em?
Yeah.
Is this what you've got in mind as well?
Definitely. Yeah, it's quite hard to think from a student's perspective.
Well, you've been a student. It can't be that hard. It was a long time ago.
It was, yeah. But I will do that. I will try to think of it from the other side. Okay. Yeah.
Good. All right. So do you have that in mind when you think about structuring your lessons? Are you thinking about what the students' expectations are, or you go in there and say, this is what I have in mind and this is what they are going to learn from me?
I think it's more the second one, really. I definitely am more the dominant thing that's kind of driving it, and
You are the dominant thing that's driving it. I like that. Put it on the t-shirt.
I make the decisions. What we're doing, before the lesson, I will think quite hard about it. I am quite a meticulous planner. I think you know that. So I do like to think about the way I'm going to present the language, how I will get them to practice it, and I will think in real terms about how that will translate into the time that I have. Mm-hmm. But I am flexible, so I do go with the flow, and I do see how it's going, and I might miss things out if I think they already know it, or I might add things if I think they need it. So there is a basic structure.
If you think back to episode 3,
How?
We were talking about lesson and course planning. So
yes.
You're not simply saying that you make all the decisions. Obviously, we check with the student and see what they want to do during the course. So it's not just what you want, it's what the students want, or you've talked about them.
Good point.
Okay.
Yeah, they've already given their input, so it's not that I am literally coming up with the lesson with no conversation from them. But
exactly, we're not just making it up as we go along, as we are now. Not really. It's very carefully structured.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so to be specific, if we've done the needs analysis course plan as a group or
Yeah, that
together.
was episode 1.
Yeah,
We've
I'm
done
just
first lessons.
coming up with an example. So
Okay.
they've said, I want telephone language, or
Why would they say that?
because they need it
What for?
to speak on the telephone.
To whom?
Anybody.
Okay, so
If-
these might be business people?
Perhaps, yeah, or anyone who's just wants to be more confident on the phone. I think a lot of
Oh.
students have problems with that kind of not face-to-face contact.
Maybe they have relatives
conversation.
abroad who
It's
speak
really
English?
not that important to the topic
Okay.
that we're talking about.
I'm just trying to think, why would they want that? But that's
If
good.
you establish they want that,
Okay.
so then I know at some point there will be a lesson about telephone language. So then I start in my own head thinking, well, how am I going to present that? What do they need to do? What kind of language are they going to want to practice and have? And so that's the kind of seed of the lesson. And I always have that in a sort of a quite structured way.
You go straight to your materials? Have you already got something planned?
Yeah.
Or is this something that you would sit down and just write?
I think it's a combination. I have exercises, activities, worksheets, things from books that I quite like, and then I will think about the level, I will think about what's applicable and collate those resources into a lesson in a logical, structured way.
So if you were a new teacher, you might, first of all, ask other teachers and say, have you got a really good lesson for teaching telephone language?
Yeah, that would be good.
Somebody might direct you to a book. You might just get a copy of something, photocopy something that you could take into the class. Or as some teachers do, they sit down and think, right, I want to make a telephone call. What expressions do I use? Are there phrasal verbs, for example, to pick up, to hang up, to put somebody through, all of these. So you need to start thinking, right, should I separate these or should I build them into a conversation? Also, as I often do, I think I've mentioned before, go online and see if there are examples of videos where people maybe role-playing these situations, or even real authentic videos, people having telephone calls, and just make sure you're using real language, or you're taking the real language that you're going to take into the classroom and teach to your students.
Yeah, I think that is a really good tip, because I am very focused on what they need in real life.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to keep that in mind, because when you start looking at these books and resources, it's easy to get distracted, and then you start
They're printed in 1972.
Exactly, and then you start going down the kind of, I need to teach them how to record an answer phone message,
Yes.
and then you realise who the hell does that anymore. So you need to really keep it relevant, and I think that's a good philosophy.
That is good, yeah, absolutely. Keep it up to date. Think about what you really use, the language you really use. Or even if you're watching an episode of a TV programme that's got somebody having a conversation, it generally is really authentic and it's very real. And you think, that would be great. That's exactly what my student wants to be able to do. So you take that language and then you've got to think about how to deliver it into the classroom.
Exactly. So I think that would be a good starting point. Like if you see something like that, even in your spare time, and you just think, I could use that, and we do that, I think, all the time, where you just see something and think, that sort of starts you thinking, doesn't it? So then you build around that. So I think I would say, a clip like that would be perfect, and then you just elicit some of the language at some point. Maybe you need to teach them the phrases that they don't know.
Okay, so just coming back to the structure.
Yeah, that is what I'm talking about. So you'd start with
Elicitation
something.
right at the beginning.
Yeah, I think I would, for example...
What do we mean by elicitation?
Getting the students to tell you what they already know.
Okay.
Well, I think, a great idea. Start with a video, see how much they understand. Ask them how much they could understand, what phrases they heard, something
that
like
might not be elicitation, though.
You're eliciting the phrases they recognised from the telephone call.
Okay, so you could start after the, icebreaker?
Yeah, which
The
is
little
what?
chit-chat at the beginning.
Chat about the weekend. Yeah.
Which could last a couple of minutes. And then you might show them a video, or you might even better listen to a recording of people having a conversation. Or you've got the sentences written down and say, where would you see these?
That's another nice lead-in.
Or also write a question on the board like, talk to your partner about the last telephone call you had. What did you say?
Okay.
Have you ever had a telephone conversation in English?
So what I think we're both saying is it should be quite free at the beginning, something quite relaxed, nothing too demanding, and just a sort of topic discussion or something that seems quite like, oh, it's a TV programme, not like diving straight into the hard language or the grammar or something. So I think that is definitely my golden rule, I suppose. Build up to the hard stuff. Start slowly.
And also, like you said, just see what they already know, because there's no point going in and teaching them everything they already know.
Exactly.
That's pointless.
Yeah.
And also maybe just double check, because maybe they told you they want telephone language, but later you find out it's for something very, very specific. And then if you're teaching them language which they're never going to use, then maybe you're going to miss the boat. That's not the right word. You just got to make sure, like, if they say to you, I only ever need to call the receptionist and make an appointment with my colleague or something like that. And then if you spend 45 minutes just teaching them phrases that they're probably never going to use, and you could have spent more time on making arrangements, making plans, sort of negotiating things like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not free at 2:00, and we make it 3:00. So maybe you might misdirect the language.
So is that something you need to think about at the beginning of the course in the needs analysis, or is this just at the beginning of the lesson that you might throw out your whole idea and start something else?
Well, yeah, it really depends on how well you've planned the course, doesn't it?
Yeah,
you might
makes me feel quite anxious though, just thinking about what you're saying.
Well, this is why the student, coming back to the student, if you're the student, you need to tell the teacher exactly what it is you want. Because otherwise you're going to get a really general lesson.
That's a very good point, Gav.
So students, keep that in mind.
Yeah.
When you tell your teacher you want something, tell them exactly what it's for, and they kind of give them examples if possible, and then the teacher can prepare better for you.
I see what you did there. I like that, yeah. I agree. That is partly the responsibility of the student.
Yeah,
so.
and definitely the responsibility is with both the teacher and the student. Teacher to really understand what students needs, student to explain to the teacher exactly what they want.
Which is the key to communication, isn't it?
It is. And talking of telephone communication...
Well, I wasn't actually finished. I wanted to carry on talking about the structure. So
yeah, so moving on.
So, okay. You've done the lead-in. You've introduced the topic.
Yes.
You've elicited something they know.
What were our examples of the lead-in? It was recordings, videos, questions, maybe just like a mini conversation with your partner. What was the last? Yeah. Okay. These are all really good ways just to loosen everybody up.
Yeah. Then you've elicited some language they already know, and then
what would you do with that language?
What?
Are you going to write that on the board?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good idea. I
like visualising it. There's no point just saying, right, what words do you know? And they say telephone.
Yeah, but we're
call,
not. I mean, we're not
ring.
talking like how to plan a lesson about telephoning. We are literally just talking generally, like something you can apply to any lesson, aren't we? The structure of the lesson.
Definitely. But I'm saying, you're telling me elicit the language. What are you going to do with that language?
So yes,
do you just like, all right, yeah, thanks very much. Now I'm going to just do something else. Or your language is really good. I'm going to put it here. Let's see what we can do with it, and maybe we can add some more language.
That's nice. So on the board, yeah, that's good. Then I think you have to start feeding in the stuff they don't know. So you could give them that as a gap fill.
A gap fill. Break that down for me. What does that look like?
Words missing from the conversation.
So I think written dialogue.
Yeah, at that point you kind of know what they know, hopefully. Okay. You can judge accordingly to whether they would know that language and maybe leave out the slightly more difficult language, so then maybe they listen to the clip again. Or
you leave out as in... You remove that language from the dialogue, written dialogue, and then, okay.
Yeah.
And so they have to, listen for it, or they're just predicting
they listen and, well, they could predict it first with their partner, and then they write in the spaces what they hear. Alternatively, you could give them all the phrases from the recording that you want to teach them, and they put them into the order they hear them. Something like that. If they're a little bit weaker, maybe not as confident, then they could be actually just seeing what's written down and ordering it in the way that it's appearing or coming up in the conversation.
So you've got a series of phrases, and you say to them, listen to this recording and number the phrases in the order that you hear them.
Either number them if they're on a a page or literally cut them out and put them into the order.
You
I
cut them out,
still
the
like cutting
the
up
students-
bits of paper.
Okay.
I do
You
like
mean
it.
you cut the bits of paper
Yeah.
and the students put the bits of paper
Yeah.
in the correct order?
Yeah, I wouldn't get them to cut the paper up. That
No,
would seem
unless you're short of time.
silly.
Em, would you like a coffee?
Thanks, Gav, but you know I only drink tea.
Oh yeah, well, that could be arranged.
Oh.
Followers, if you're enjoying listening, watching or reading Gav and Em's How to English Pod, visit ko-fi.com/How to English Pod.
That's coffee, ko-fi.com/How to English Pod. And it would be lovely if you bought us a coffee or a tea to show us support, and you could even get a mention on our show if you'd like. Okay, is that what you do, Gav?
I think you've just described basically, I was going to say exactly the same.
Aha, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so you broke it down into the stages of, we've got warm-up kind of icebreaker, we've got lead in, which is kind of, this is to generate interest, isn't it?
Yes.
This is to make them start thinking about, okay, I'm thinking about this topic now, whatever topic it is, doesn't have to be about telephone language, and then they're already sort of evoking the words, or the sinews are flashing around in their brains, and they're thinking about what words do I need to use, and then that's it, bang, take them into, you do an exercise, you fill in the gaps, you listen to this and maybe complete something.
Yep.
So where are we?
We are now at the crucial moment of activation.
This is the apex of the learning mountain.
So, nice. So what are your suggestions? How do you activate that, Gav?
Role play.
I
You knew
like
it was
that.
coming, didn't you?
I knew. It's just perfect.
It is. And I think students...
Do they like it, though?
Although sometimes they say they don't, I think they love it. I think they absolutely love it. And some of them role play when I don't even ask them to. So I have the feeling that they want any excuse to do a bit of role play.
Yeah.
What's role play for you? Because for me, it's pretending and acting in a way that is like, it's kind of like a safe environment where you can pretend and use the language that you might need to in a specific situation.
And I think that's really important to explain to them. They don't have to be a character. You know, I think they think role play is something they would get to do at school, and they would be told, like, you're an aggressive pirate or something, and they.
But that is a good way to teach as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, but I wouldn't do that first, because I think you need to know if they're comfortable with it.
Yeah.
So if you just say, don't use the word role play, just say, imagine you're in this situation, you need to make a call, and then they can sort of be themselves, but just using the language. I just never say, okay, now we're going to do a role play. Because you see the eyes rolling, and
they
roll. Oh, they do. They roll very well, those eyes.
Expect a little bit of resistance if you say, now you're going to be this person who is calling this person, and they might look at you like, oh, I don't want to do this. But I think once you get going and everybody's involved, I think that they really enjoy themselves. I think it's a really, really fun way to activate, that's a key word, isn't it? Activate the language, because all students, they just build up this passive knowledge. If you're a student, you know these words, you've got them in your brain, and you know these phrases, and you think, I'm just ready to use them, but I need an opportunity to practice them, to activate, to make this go from a passive knowledge to an active knowledge.
And that takes confidence on both sides. I think it takes confidence on the teacher's side to just say, yeah, this is what you're going to do. Because I think sometimes you look at their reaction and you think, oh, no, okay, we won't do that if you're not happy with it. But I think that they just want sometimes the permission, the freedom to do it.
Yeah.
They wouldn't volunteer, I don't think, to do it. Or very few would.
Yeah.
So once you say, well, this is it, this is how we're going to do it, then I think they do kind of rally round. And then as a student, I think they need to think, well, I'm really going to just have to get on with this because this is the only way.
It's the only chance I'm going to get without being in that actual situation. You know, if we were talking about like checking into a hotel, the role play is so effective.
Yes, it is. But alternatively, if you have a very confident student who is kind of done with all that, and they've done that a lot, then you just get them to call an actual person, a real human, and you say...
A real human person.
You say, OK, I want you to call up a supermarket and ask them if they've got something in stock.
Yes,
and
exactly.
It's just...
Semi-skimmed milk, half a litre.
Whatever. I mean, you just have to think of another way of activating it.
You have to challenge. If you're a higher level student, you need your teacher to challenge you.
Yeah,
and that's what we need to keep in mind.
I've sent people out the room before and said, right, now you've got that language, go and ask your English-speaking colleague that you need that thing on your desk by whatever, and just go now, do it, go and ask.
Okay, start bossing the students around. If that's what it takes to make them use the language, that's absolutely brilliant.
Can you think of anything else to activate it, or that isn't the norm or the classic ways, or is?
Yeah. That's hard. I mean, my lessons are often more sort of conversation based. So I would just make sure the students covered the specific language that I would expect them to use during that type of conversation.
So you would just hypothetically say, what would you do if you were in that situation? And then they're replying with those phrases.
I say, has that ever happened to you? And they say, yeah, I was checking into this hotel. And usually... people are a bit lazy when they tell you stories, and they say, yeah, I checked into the hotel and then I went to the room, and I said, well, tell me, how did you check in? What did you say?
That's nice.
And, did you use a credit card? Did you have to sign the form? So what questions did the receptionist ask? It's just there.
Used.
Yeah.
So you're talking from a one-to-one point of view, I suppose. But if you had a group...
You could do that in groups and say, tell us about that experience that you had, and tell the group. And what's interesting is they often come up with and the receptionist said, can I check your passport? And I say, are you sure they said passport, or was that the ID card? And you suddenly realise there's certain language that's missing, or maybe the student misremembered questions or something. So you really can focus on very specifically and say, well, that's very unusual that somebody might say this in some situation. But I think you can do it with groups. I think then with groups, what you might do, apart from role play, is ask them to have a conversation about it. So then again, they're just maybe retelling a story, and then they would have to use the language that you've already taught them that was in the earlier part of the lesson. Because if you tried to do that earlier, they would struggle, and they would say, there's that, what's that thing? But, now, once you've taught it to them, hopefully they're either glancing at the whiteboard to see the language there, or they've got some notes in their notebook from some of the words that you taught them earlier or you elicited from other students. So that's great.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of another way that I would...
I was just going to add that...
Well, you just asked me a question.
You spent quite a long time answering it. I was just going to say that when coming back to what you said about the conversation aspect at the end... Would they generate their own questions, or would you give them the questions to generate that conversation?
I've done both. If they're students who are really happy to talk to each other and have really nice conversations, then just let them talk. But also, I quite like writing questions, and I give the questions to the students and say, okay, use these questions, ask each other, or make your own questions. Usually they just read my questions out, and they're a bit more... interesting.
Or maybe targeted, let's say.
They're very focused.
You've got a specific question with an answer.
You can't pretend that you know the answer. It requires you to know language. And the questions often contain the language that I've already taught them, or I would expect it to come up in the lesson. So they should never get stuck on the questions themselves. But it will challenge them to give answers. It's just that if you say to students, all right, now talk about this, ask each other questions, they tend not to push themselves very much. So it's good to be prepared to push them.
Yeah.
But I think even if you're a student, just try and think about how you can engage more with that conversation or with that activity or with that role play. Like, really imagine you're doing it. Really think, okay, I'm in that place. I'm checking into a hotel. I'm making that telephone call. I'm talking to my boss and explaining something to him or her. And then that psychologically, that must be much more powerful. And you're going to remember that experience. You'll remember that language.
And I think the students should remember that they it might seem a bit silly, like you say, like when they say, well, why would I say that? Or why do I need to explain that?
Yeah.
But I think that from a just activation point of view, if you use as much as you can and really practice everything to the smallest detail, as much as you might not need to do that in real life.
But that's a nice tip as well, because if some language comes up and then you say, well, when would you say that? Who would you say that to?
Yeah.
Why do you need that? And then the student thinks, actually, that's a really good expression. I can use that next time I do this.
Yeah.
I think we've covered it.
Yeah, we've covered, I think, a good range, but I wouldn't mind maybe in the future widening it a little. I feel maybe that was a
We
bit...
can do. I thought we weren't supposed to say what we're not going to talk about. You always blame me for saying I want to do something
well,
else.
I'm just changing it.
A new topic.
No, maybe more detail on this topic. Other kinds of structure and...
Yeah, I'm sure there are plenty.
I don't want, to give the impression that I think that's the only way of teaching a lesson, because I think there are many, many, many different structures. That's just one example, which I would call the classic.
That's the classic. So
Let's
we'll have a look into some other ways of planning, and then we'll definitely prepare another episode of the podcast soon.
Yeah.
All right, then. I think that's it.
Good.
Any more questions, Em?
I'm happy.
All right. Well, thanks to our global listeners. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.